Hello and welcome to a new video. Today is Friday the 29th of April 2016. It is currently 1510 hours Central European time. This video is being made on the hope that there are people who do follow-up work for NASA's fake Curiosity mission. and you can see my data here on the screen, my name is Wolfgang Trubshaw. I'm born on December 15th, 1976. I live in Vienna. Here's my email address. I happen to have a more civil email address than this one, but I'd prefer, if you feel compelled to contact me, that you contact me via this one. And for any kind of donations, here is my bank account in Vienna. This video has to do with Curiosity at the very start, but it really has to do with what I summarize as inhumane technologies, being all manners of mind control as well as physical control, psychotronic attacks, remote neural monitoring, extra low frequency, directed energy weapons, functional neuroimaging, voice-to-skull, electronic brain link, Monarch, Phoenix Project, microwave weapons, and so on and so forth. You can read here. I summarize all of these and the mixtures of these as inhumane technologies. So instead of using particular technical terms, I will, if I mention it, keep talking of inhumane technologies. When it comes to me, I happen to be from a country where inhumane technologies have been severely abused for decades and decades. So my personal vita as an Austrian, someone born in Austria, and especially as someone who happens to be of English descent, because I happen to have English relatives, as you can see by my last name here, and the Austrians with the inhumane technology being completely paranoid about what the Brits did over these decades with those inhumane technologies. I was targeted as an individual, not just to the extent as the entire population of Austria was being targeted, but I was specifically targeted for all manners of things. I've done a German video that is on YouTube where you can read about that. That is not today's video's topic. Today I am trying to see, my problem is I have been severely discredited, and my very existence and my deeds and acts and feats have been hushed up completely for a plethora of reasons. So I want to go back to Curiosity and give you a little bit of background to the entire thing. Now, I stumbled across NASA's Curiosity mission when, not when they started this, I wasn't really paying attention when they started the mission, but on 17th of February 2013, on a German, an Austrian to be precise, newspaper website, I stumbled across this photograph here. They have this in a gallery of all manners of scientific photography, and here they say strange object on Mars. On the 30th of January, the 173rd mission day of Curiosity, or Sol 173 as they call it. This was one of the many odd things that you can see in the photographs that NASA put up that day that allegedly were taken on Mars. Now, I stumbled across this on the 17th of February 2013. I do want to point out, and here I give a little advance information, that from this moment onwards, I so sank my teeth into these photographies because I, it turned out afterwards, had been sicked onto these photographs and debunking these photographs by all manners of Fex Mundi interest groups. Now, Fex Mundi is another little technical term. It's a Latin phrase. What it means is filth of the world. And what is meant is all those who use, and I write this in brackets, and abuse inhumane technologies. Any using of all of these technologies mentioned here is inhumane by very nature, so there is no separation between, well, we're not abusing it, we're just using it. There is no legitimate use for inhumane technologies, and Fex Mundi are all of those who use these technologies. However, those are horrendously subdivided in all manners of IGs. Those are interest groups. All manners, there's all kinds of people in there. There's religions in there, there's private sector people in there, there's strange brotherhoods in there, there is Freemasons in there of various groups. There's all kinds of IGs out there in the world. But 1IG sicked me onto these photographs and basically threw me out at the front of fighting against the interest group that is behind these forged photographs. Now, upon analyzing these videos, these photographs, I went to NASA's original website. They take you straight to the original website here. I can click this just to show you that the article back then took me straight to NASA and what was recorded that day. You see all kinds of photographs that were recorded that day. I don't want to wait for all of that to load. Needless to say that there was something horrendously wrong with these photographs. And after being manipulated via inhumane technologies, mind control, into doing a completely ridiculous series of 6-part, I think it was, series of videos on YouTube, which I did in late February 2013, which I deleted again the day after upon me figuring out that I had been manipulated into doing these videos. I went back and examined these photographs, and I started a thread at a miniature website, a tabletop miniature wargaming terrain website, and I called the thread Best Red Planet Diorama Ever. You can Google just for the title of it, Best Red Planet Diorama Ever, or you have the URL up here. Treponder is me, that is my username. And on 2nd of March 2013, Pacific Standard Time, in the morning, I started this thread. Now you can go there. I will just scroll down the thread. Here are photographs. They are not at full size. You can open them individually in a new window. This is the full-size photograph. I have made these markings on the photographs and enlarged these sections that I marked. They're on my web space. But there's actually the official NASA photos linked here too. I want to point out that after that NASA has taken down some of the images that originally they had up, and they also changed the color depth of some of these photographs. In particular, here is a photograph. All of these encarved things that you see here that I magnified and enlarged were originally much more colorful in the original photographs as NASA had them up before they retouched these photographs. And they also retouched my photographs on my web space. I want to point that out. These are not the original photographs. They mess with my photographs. They mess with their original photographs, just for completeness sake. All of these funny photographs happen to have black corners. You can see the black corners of the photographs. They're just black marked at the corners, whereas some of their other photographs do not have these black corners. And generally, what I understood in this particular, well, let's just continue here with the thread. So I'll just scroll down here. The reactions of the other posters was magnificent and so telltale about the completely petrified state of US Americans. The vast majority of those are Americans. Here are some of the grotesque. Now, what you see in these photographs is actually not on Mars at all. But curiosity photographs, there's two categories of curiosity photographs. One is actual photographs taken on remote parts of Earth, in deserts and whatnot, and the other part of curiosity photographs is this here, which is actually miniature terrain. These are terrain tables that have been created and sold as Mars. I proved here how they actually manipulated photographs and reused elements in photographs to pretend that they're having a rover run around up there, which they do not, and so on and so forth. I tried in this thread to give NASA a chance to come forth and explain to the world that they are completely fucking up the world. That did not happen. However, about a day or so after I started this thread, so I started it on the 2nd of March, and about the 3rd of March, thereabouts, it actually occurred to me what this really all, namely back when you could still see what this all here resembled. This was a meteor coming down. Here you had stairs and a window up on the top, and so on and so forth. hard to spot in these retouched photographs, but in the original photographs everything was much clearer. Add to that the bizarre photographs that they have deleted even before I started this thread. It all added up to the next papal election and the next conclave. And upon me realizing this, I realized that NASA, quite frankly, what with the meteorite here and everything, wanted to destroy the Vatican. So what I did was on the 3rd or something, I had on the 2nd, upon me starting this thread, I had sent an email pointing out this very existing thread here to all kinds of other non-US American space agencies in Europe and Russia and China and whatnot. I just wrote all the space agencies that they should take a look at these ridiculously forged photographs that allegedly come from Mars when it's tables created, miniature terrain tables created. But once I figured what is actually displayed on Sol 173 on the 173rd day of the mission, it pointed out to the destruction of the Vatican. Now, then I sent an email to the Vatican wherein I did not tell them right away, hey, NASA wants to destroy you, but I actually pointed them out to this thread, just mentioning that religious topics are allegedly to be seen on Mars, so that they go there themselves and their own people understand what actually NASA is showing here. Now, what they wanted to do on 17th of March, on 17/3, right, was to have fake meteorites as practiced in Chelyabinsk just a little earlier. They practiced this on 15th of February 2013. This is an artificially created meteorite. It sounds more complicated than it really is. It is an explosive core which needn't even be there, and around it you have something that, due to various chemical reactions, extracts moisture out of the surrounding air as it plummets down to Earth and gains in mass and size by building some kind of highly rigid foam. So these things here actually are not real meteorites, they are sponge bobs, let's call it that, bombs, sorry, not bobs, sponge bombs, and that is all they are. And they wanted to destroy the Vatican from beneath the Vatican, because they had, as they had done in 9/11, placed underground the Vatican in canalization and other tunnels and catacombs various explosives, nuclear devices that would blow up and create a cavity wherein then all the Vatican would topple into, when at the same time they would bring down one or more fake meteorites right dead bang onto the Vatican. That was, sorry, there's just funny noises going on in my bathroom. I'm not sure if you heard that. Anyway, that was what they wanted to do on 17th of March 2013. They wanted to destroy the Vatican to then be able to reconstruct the Vatican and have a Vatican 2.0 elsewhere in the world, namely in America, so that they can completely and utterly mind, mess, and manipulate all of the Roman Catholic Church straight in America. But for that, the Vatican had to go, and they wanted to have it a very dramatic thing, namely meteor or meteorites crashing down to destroy the Vatican, which would also play into all kinds of prophecies, such as that this Pope would be the last Pope, and that whatnot, God would bring down his judgment on the Vatican, and all kinds of crazy religious people and their prophecies. And this is what they had planned. However, my starting this thread and explaining how all of their photographs are ridicule, and showing also and mentioning these deleted photographs in the very first few days of March, and sending these emails out. And back then, believe this or not, you could still simply send the Vatican an email. Back in March 2013, if you went to the Vatican's homepage, you had an email contact there, which since then has disappeared. You can no longer reach the Vatican by email, fascinatingly enough. But back in 2013 you could. So I was able to simply write a mail to the Vatican, as I was able to write these mails to the other space agencies previously. And as they could then understand that there was all kinds of people informed of this, they had to cancel the destruction of the Vatican. Now, they passed the word of the destruction of the Vatican around by having this here article. This is on sciencemag.org. You can see the URL here. On the 6th of March, They passed a prepared article called 3D Reconstruction of the Source and Scale of Buried Young Flood Channels on Mars. What this really means is that they put everything into its previous state, namely, and you can view the full text here, but you have to log in. I am not a customer of science, so I take you here. This was the same newspaper reporting on that article a few days later. So this article originally is from the 6th of March, as you can see up here. And on the 9th of March they reported on it. And here is an artwork, an image from the article. Elysium Planitia, which of course is a region of Mars, but really stands for the Vatican. And here they show how the channels beneath it have been cleared again. What does that mean? That means with this article they let know, all the people in the know, that they cancelled and blew off the destruction of the Vatican, and it was camouflaged as a science article, that they had 3D reconstructed the buried young flood channels beneath Mars. And Mars of course was the Vatican, and they had removed the explosives from under the Vatican and had cancelled the destruction of the Vatican. Now, what followed was an unspeakable attack on me with all of these technologies. I was severely targeted in unspeakable manner. I got tortured in my way that I cannot begin to put into words. And the whole thing, and all the while I hung in there and I survived, and my very surviving to this day actually is one of the most self-discrediting things about me, unfortunately, because they argue that if all of this were aimed at somebody, no one would survive it, and yet here I am. Now the reason I was able to survive was because I had all manners of interest groups attack me at the same time, including those who had sicked me at these images first. And the way the electronic brain links work, if you connect two brains to one another, odd as that might sound to you, and if the other one is operating some of the virtualware apps that people have in their heads against you, you can actually witness how they're being operated. And I learned how to operate some of the apps that all us people have been given into our very heads. And I was able to defend myself. Not just that, in 2014, early 2014, a year into that, a year of unspeakable torture into that, I was actually able to delete their to-the-brain connecting infrastructure worldwide, which is the infrastructure that they had utilized to establish true brain-to-brain connections all over the world. I was able to delete that, and to such an extent that you can no longer get a new such connection unless you had a standing connection from before I did away with the connecting infrastructure. That in itself was further reason why I was continuously hushed up and discredited in a multitude of ways, for the simple fact that a lot of the interest groups out there do not understand the technical backgrounds, and simply, namely all of the religious crazy people out there who work with inhumane technologies, they think it is all because of the work of God that these technologies work, or because of magical powers, or because of whatever mumbo-jumbo pseudo-scientific reasons. But the actual science underlying it all is something that they inherited, so to speak, because some of these technologies go back all the way to the first days of broadcasting, and we're talking late 20s, early 30s here. That is how far back some of these technologies go. I'll get to that in a moment. So I defended myself, and behind the scenes, this whole Vatican thing did cause quite a lot of attention, to such an extent that even in America, they felt, namely the very people who were behind wanting to blow up the Vatican, felt compelled to pull the Boston Marathon bombing. Now, the thing that is interesting about the Boston Marathon bombing is that it was a sheer display of power, for the simple reason that all parties involved in the Boston Marathon events, namely the Tsarnaevs as the bombers, all the police, the FBI, everybody, down to, after they were done with all their raids and searches, the cheering mass population of the place there in Boston where this all found its end, all people involved throughout this charade of an ongoing were completely and utterly scripted and remote controlled as a demonstration of the very people who wanted to annihilate the Vatican of what is possible with mind control and all of these technologies and all the inhumane technologies. This was an intimidation display. They wanted those who were trying to hunt them down because of what they had planned with the Vatican to back off from them, and it seems to have been successful because to this day nothing has happened as of bringing these people down. But elsewhere in the world, namely in Russia, they were still investigating this here funny thing, and they figured we need something to get the Russians' attention away from this, and so they launched the Edward Snowden lie. Edward Snowden is a complete fake. This dude is completely either controlled, mind controlled, and or is actually an agent of whoever the fuck, of the inhumane technology using interest groups of Fex Mundi. This man did not surrender any information that was vital to anybody. It was just one more display, and he was probably, no, not probably, I imagine the interviews that he had with the Russians to be utterly farcical things. While they were sitting there, the Russians must have been severely live manipulated for inhumane technologies, and he had all information that they might have wanted to get accessible via his brain. Snowden is a fake. This might surprise some people. Edward Snowden is a complete fake, just brought forth to distract the Russians from further investigating into Chelyabinsk and a couple of other things. Now, these technologies, especially all of the virtual appware that happens that runs in one's brain, is a very elaborate thing. I happen to have the little graphics here that I did. I don't want to go into the details of this here, but anybody with understanding of the protocols of mind control and the communicating between minds should understand, even though this might display it a little differently. I have it as an Excel sheet of sorts where simply all of the port numbers, these are port numbers here, of your brain, believe this or not. And you will have to take my word that I came to understand the deepest workings of this all. I came to understand all the varied apps that there were, as I call it, that people had used in their heads. And I just researched more and more and more into all of this. And you fast forward a little. Oh, I'm briefly talking about the fake meteorites, like in Chelyabinsk. I want to, just for completeness sake, bring something else up. On 4th of December 2015, I came across a Chinese wall hanging calendar for 2016 from a Chinese restaurant, and I noted that they had this artwork here on the calendar. So beneath it they had the calendar grid, but above, on the upper half of the thing, they had this here artwork, which is actually a coded artwork. The little signature sign down here points you to the direction, namely that it's this way up. So if you turn it 90 degrees to the left, you get this. And you can see a little meteor here, and the way the visual cortex can be manipulated, if you look at this thing right, and that is very hard, nigh on impossible to emulate on a computer screen. I've tried my best in a graphics program. This is what you get of it. And this is actually a little kid's skull having a large open hole, and something leaves it and rushes towards the meteorite, while a father weeps and the mother gazes on. This is what is displayed on Chinese calendars, and if you fold the calendar, it has the meteor, which would be this here section, if you look at it the right way, hover around September, thereabouts. Now, admittedly, the way you align the calendar dates beneath the image, if you fold it, it could come to rest over different months, but on the one I have, it rests over September. But anyway, on 2016 calendar, maybe September 2016, somewhere in Asia, not necessarily in China, they might well have another meteor event planned. So if you fast forward the year, if you come across some Asian meteorite thing happening, Well, what do you know? You heard it first in this here video, and they already subliminally tell people. The way it works is your phases. What are phases? Phases is any one of these lines outwards. That's a phase. That's my terminology for it. Your phases actually can subliminally see these images after all. If they understand that this points them to the right direction, and they can be told that via the humongous manipulation of mass population, then your phases will be able, even if it's hanging upside down on the wall, what your phases will see is something akin to this here, even though what you're looking at is this here, and are being subliminally influenced into this meteorite shit. And again, it's on the 2016 calendar, and the meteorite hovers across September if you fold it together, so I would not be surprised. I don't say they're absolutely going to pull it, but if something meteorite 2016 happens, it will happen in China or in Asia, not necessarily in China. And yeah, I pointed that out in 2015, December, just for completeness sake, talking about these fake meteorites. I got a very own little of these things just for me personally as a display when I was targeted through what I call the proxy devices, and I cannot go into what those are, but as I said, there is no longer a to-the-brain connection to my brain possible because I broke off all of these connections and did away with the connecting infrastructure. So all they can work on now is proxy devices which emit fields and are here in my apartment, in the walls and the ceiling of my apartment, and they can only sort of kind of shove things my way, but nothing at all like a true to-the-brain connection. But I got the kind invitation to look in the middle of the night, to look out the window, and when I looked out the window I actually saw one of these fake meteorites, a wee little one. This was small scale, nothing big, right here across Vienna. This was not a plane, this was not a shooting star. This was actually a display done just for me so that they can show me that they're shoving these things across the skies. What they do with it, with these meteorites, well, they can to a certain extent use it for destructive purposes, although the Vatican case would not have brought the destruction from above, even if they had had explosive cores, but the main explosions would have happened beneath it. Nonetheless, you can do this to horrendously manipulate especially religious people who associate all kinds of shit with meteors, especially if you give them all manners of visions and whatnot before, which also via the inhumane technologies can be forced upon a person to give them unspeakable experiences down the lines of what a vision or a religious experience would be like. I can write a book on that because I, as an atheist that I am, the filth that tortured me found it very funny to shove some religious scenarios my way, and I had to endure this unspeakable torture. But I just wanted to bring up the possible 2016 September-ish Asian meteorite thing that they are putting on wall calendars for mass manipulation. But back to this here. So we talked about Snowden and so on. I investigated into the whole matter. I succeeded to pacify my own phases. I succeeded to delete most of the appware, the virtualware that I was given in my head, so that they could no longer manipulate me that horrendously. All the while I tried to contact all manners of secret agencies and services and whatnot. I sent emails, I still do to this day. I just want to briefly show, Verlautbarung means announcement. I wrote 183 of them so far to, you can see this here, all kinds of European but also non-European agencies and whatnot. And I've been trying to contact these people endlessly. But then, so the important thing is that my surviving the onslaught of torture in itself discredited me. There was actual surveillance of me, classic old school surveillance, audio-video surveillance of me, happening in 2013. And as I knew that was going on, I ridiculed them as best as I could, and that, I guess, contributed to me accidentally self-discrediting myself, if you will. I actually sent them, I can show you this here, on the 16th of June 2014, I actually sent a CD-ROM with all manners of documents, including the, for instance, let's look at this one here, the ports list, as I call it. This is how in your brain the various layers of functionality is being worked, believe this or not. And I showed that to them. I showed all kinds of other documents to them. That was already in 2014, June, 16th of June 2014, when all of my research and understanding these ongoings, understanding the attacks against me, being able to defend myself against the attacks, when all of that was done, and of course after already having deleted the to the brain connectability that I had for the previous year, or all my life really, until I deleted it in February 2014. I deleted the entire to the brain connecting infrastructure in the world, and got out of it myself that way. I sent that all to a number of embassies. Actually, the embassies, I can show you which embassies. Here in Vienna, the Apostolic Nuncio, the German embassy, the Israeli embassy, the Italian embassy, the Japanese embassy, the Russian embassy, the Spanish embassy, the Swiss embassy, the UK embassy, and the USA embassy. This was the letter that they all got on 16th of June 2014, and they all got a copy of the CD-ROM, which included all of these files that you see here. And there had been a lot of previous emails that I had sent and previous documentation that, unfortunately, before I had deleted all of the apps and before I got a full understanding of how it works, I was forced into deleting myself. There's a lot of 2013 material, especially in late 2013, that they forced me to delete myself here on my computer, not in my brain, mind you. I'm talking about actual documents, so that I no longer had it as proof and as on availability. So some of these informations here lack the previous information that it's based on from the 2013, so it's all a bit out of context to some people, but anybody in the know of at least a few little aspects of this should understand what is going on here. Now, I want to show you my YouTube account. Even though you're at YouTube right now, I just want to take you back to the oldest video that I put online. The oldest of my videos, is actually from the 5th of March 2014. So this predates my letter to the embassies. I would like to point out that I have re-recorded this video, namely here, newly commented older video of mine. I just recorded this video on the screen and made a new voiceover partially, adding some comments here and there. So if you want to watch this oldest of my videos from April 2014, I suggest you watch this version here, which is basically just a commented version of that video. I also urge you to watch these 4-part technical videos here, even though they are in German language, and I urge you in particular, if you want to understand what it is I deleted and how all these connecting infrastructures worked, this 3-part video, which is English, though they were horrendously manipulating my English and my ability to speak coherently in making me stutter and constantly be lost for words and so on and so forth. But here is the actual hard technical information, and there's all kinds of other videos since then. Now, in my research, and here it's getting interesting to the UK people, I guess, and to everybody else who has anything to do with, well, who is European, if nothing else. This here gentleman, Barnard Fitzalan Howard, or to be precise, Barnard Marmaduke Fitzalan Howard, the 16th Duke of Norfolk, born 30th May 1908, died 31st January 1975. This was one of the big daddies of inhumane technology's very, very beginnings. This man has manipulated ever since the days of George V. So go look George V up. Ever since the days of George V, this guy has manipulated with inhumane technologies the royal household, the royal family over there, as well as all other royals and peer, and of course, continuously the entire mass population. This guy and his allies, he must have had a whole lot of allies, and those allies were interest groups. One of those interest groups must have been, back then, early rabid radical Zionists. That was one of the interest groups that he worked in, but he must have had other allies, especially with broad ties into the US back then. I'm not quite perfectly sure who that was. That might have also been a religious grouping, but that guy, the 16th Duke of Norfolk, was the big daddy of all mindfucking as far as I'm concerned. And I want to point out to you that these technologies and them being abused against mankind goes back to the early days of broadcasting, and that takes us back to the days of George V. Here we have George V. I'm just going to briefly show you George V and his reign. He reigned from 1910 to 1936. This fella here. And the grotesque events that happened leading up to Elizabeth II. Now, why is this guy here? You have a photo a little more modern than this one. This is a painting on a box of matches. Here you have a photo of the guy. This guy is actually, moreover, the true father of Prince Charles. Now, you know Prince Charles as the son of Queen Elizabeth II. What might surprise you is that the father of Prince Charles is not Prince Philip. He's the father of all the other kids of Elizabeth, but the actual father of Prince Charles is the 16th Duke of Norfolk. Now, mind you, I am not suggesting that the Queen had a secret affair with him. Actually, I don't know. It would have been very easy to manipulate her into having one. I believe, though, that they simply used artificial insemination, and it would have been even easier to manipulate her into some kind of medicinal examination, especially when she was just newly getting married to Prince Philip, and when they wanted an heir as quick as possible, and he smuggled in his semen into the Queen. So Charles is the son of the 16th Duke of Norfolk, and as such he is a bastard. As such he is a double bastard, because he does not count as a legitimate prince, nor does he count as the 17th Duke of Norfolk, because even for the Norfolk line he is a bastard. The 17th, the Duke of Norfolk title and Marshal of England, and that function is the all-important one, because when it comes to the title of Marshal of England, there is a whole crazy delusional ongoing working at the same time that the 18th and current Marshal of England is involved in, that has to do with crazy Americans, that has to do with the Bloody Tower in London and all manners of other things. But as I understand, the Queen just celebrated her 90th birthday, and much more important than that, her husband, Prince Philip, is still alive. I strongly urge anybody, the Queen herself, anybody on Albion, to do an all-new genetic comparison between Prince Philip, as long as he's still alive and his genetic material can still be obtained easily, and Charles. Do not take existing samples of genetical material. Take all new material and go to an all-new doctor. Don't consult the doctors that you usually consult for such things. And I guarantee you they will find out that Philip is not the father of Charles, because the father of Charles is the Duke of Norfolk. As such, I also want to point that out for the future of Albion. As such, not just is Charles a bastard, but all he spawned is bastards, really, or at least not legitimate for the crown. So William and Harry are not at all legitimate to ever sit on that throne. I want to point that out. Now, the interesting thing about him is that in his latter years, he lost control over his own creation, so to speak. In the UK, there were players in the armed services, in the secret services, that understood about these technologies, that used these technologies, but used them with significantly more responsibility and more sanity than he did. And unfortunately, he and for the most part, I take that to be an Charles to follow him, gambled away those civilized and sane users of inhumane technology. Which means that they, Charles in particular, Prince Charles, betrayed all the sanity that was to be found amongst the willing executioners of Fex Mundi in the United Kingdom. Now, I myself have gotten quite a lot of exposition to certain ongoings coming from the UK when it comes to inhumane technology, some of which helped me survive this long, and I too have been betrayed ultimately by Prince Charles. They betrayed it all to the crazy religious Americans and to all manners of very odd interest groups, and all inhumane technology using has gotten completely out of hand. The very people who wanted to nuke the Vatican are still at liberty, still working on the next big thing like that, and my entire findings about this, my resisting all of this, my having to learn via attacks written against me and driven against me how these things work, my understanding it was not complying with what some of these delusional religious maniacs who attacked me had down as understanding of these technologies, and that was a further reason why I was discredited. They wanted me hushed up and discredited because it did not comply with how they explained the whole thing to work in their own heads. They are all bound and caught in something that I call a scenario app, which is a horrendous thing. It comes out of a military background, but it has been long since ago abused for religions and other things. And the situation is just horrendous. And I do this video in order to point out to some people that I have been hushed up, that I have been discredited like nobody else. I protected the Vatican. My goal was not to protect the Vatican. I do want to point out that as an atheist, I am all but a friend of the Vatican. However, the destruction of the Vatican would have destroyed a huge part of Rome with it. And as someone who's been to Rome, I rather like the place and I wanted to spare Rome. Plus, NASA's photography, for all practical purposes, establish presence on Mars, moreover with a Christian theme, and that itself is something that I completely wanted to fight, that being established by NASA. NASA saying, well, look, there's Jesus on Mars here. No, there is not, and that is another reason why I fought against it. I want to point out that I am not at all related to the Vatican. I just wanted to, just because for me, the inhumane attack started with my analyzing these pictures. I started at this point, and that is why I did this video. So there is tons and tons and tons and tons of other topics, all kinds of applications of these inhumane technologies that I could talk in length about, particular specific individual applications that I've mentioned again and again in my documents. I have several documents. One of it alone is some 350 pages long and is proof of how unspeakably they try to attack people's minds, and you can see the manners of attacks in this document and so on and so forth. I have been hushed up, and I just watch my videos on YouTube chronologically. I tried to go into the UK. I was barred access into the UK because they slandered and discredited me, and the border force at the border did not allow me into the UK. Please somebody forward this video and watch all of my videos. Watch all of my videos chronologically. Start with the oldest one, though. Don't watch this version here. Watch the updated version, but then just watch them all chronologically. Understand that this really starts out 1.5 years of events after Curiosity and after early 2013. So understand that I had 1.5 years of writing documents and trying to contact people that you are probably missing, but it's all in my documents, and I've been sending these documents to all these services and agencies for the longest time, for years now actually, I am being discredited and I am being hushed up when I am the sanest man on earth and when I am prime protector of mankind. I understand how mankind is unspeakably, grotesquely enslaved with the aid of inhumane technologies. I understand that amongst Fex Mundi there are interest groups which are light years beyond anything you would call criminally insane. They are so out of it that there's not even words to describe their mental state. They are completely and utterly beyond good or evil. These people need to be stopped and put down. And I have the technical basics and details down that might enable their willing executioners to snap out of it and to liberate themselves so that they no longer need be their willing executioners. And I want to go back to this document. If you watch my videos, you will see, and in my videos on YouTube, I also did document the emails that I sent, so you will see a lot of the topics coming up in there. One of them is that especially here in ex-Austria, they have, namely the Abwehramt, that's the Army's military secret agency. The Abwehramt has severely attacked me from day one of the Curiosity ongoings back then, which means, just for people to understand that, each and all Fex Mundi in Austria and the regions around it, because they are closely related to one another, happens to be on the side of those coming out of America mostly, but also working with elements from within the Vatican, mind you. I do want to point that out. The Vatican is a deeply divided, splinter-celly thing these days. Elements in the Vatican itself, but mostly coming out of America, with NASA on their side. All of the Austrian Fex Mundi and their willing executioners, the Abwehramt, is completely 100% aligned with those people who wanted to annihilate half of Rome and the Vatican with it, to establish something that I don't even want to mention again. I want you all of you Fex Mundi interest groups out there, all of you services out there, to understand that all Fex Mundi interest groups in Austria have fought against me in the most unspeakable manner, have attacked me in the most grotesque manner, to as little ago as January, February 2016, so just a few months ago. They're still attacking me every now and then via the proxy devices and the proxy fields. To this very day, they want to hush me up, also because the worldwide to the brain connecting infrastructure that I destroyed and deleted, I destroyed and deleted for everybody. These Fex Mundi interest groups don't want other Fex Mundi interest groups to come into understanding that it was me, in my attempts to defend myself, who destroyed the worldwide global to the brain infrastructure. They deny the existence of such a thing in the first place, and as it doesn't work anymore, they certainly deny any mere mortal like me being able to do away with it. I was able to do away with it because of a lot of the apps that I got over these years. I was able to do away with it because I had to come to understand how all of these apps work, because I was attacked via every last one of them, and I was able to delete that infrastructure. In February 2014, I deleted that infrastructure, and that is something they want hushed up so that they don't suffer the consequences of all the other interest groups of Fex Mundi, and so on and so forth. There is a plethora of reasons why I'm being completely hushed up, while the events are being completely hushed up, while I'm being discredited, and in addition to that, my entire life was financially annihilated. I am unemployed, I have no money, and that is why my bank account information is here. If you can find that you can make an anonymous donation to my bank account, it runs under my name. The bank is called Bank Austria. That's what it's called. Please send me a bit of money. A few bucks, a few $100, a few $1,000. Send me millions if you are with interest groups of Fex Mundi and coming to understand what all I have found out. Do take the time to watch each and all of my videos, even if some of them might be in German language. Get somebody who can translate to that German. Understand that I've been sending out documents for years now at this point, literally plural years, and that I'm being horrendously discredited, that all that I found out about these technologies was stolen, the knowledge about how to actually work these technologies was extracted through the proxy fields, that there's interest groups out there who have abused me being tortured for coming into understanding how this thing really works, even though they, as the religious maniacs as they are, don't want to know how it really works. And at some point, they might have actually chosen to deliberately lie about how these technologies really work just because it does not rub them the right way and their religious delusions that they're caught in. And above a lot of things, on Albion, understand that Charles is a bastard. Understand that all mankind will understand that Fex Mundi has forever done in and conquered all mankind on Albion if Charles or William or Harry ever sit on that throne. The Queen just turned 90. She's not getting younger. I wish her a long life. May she live 100 or beyond. But they're beyond, if ever, Charles or William or Harry, who are not at all legitimized to sit on that throne, wind up sitting on that throne. All of Albion is known to have been completely lost for all mankind, enslaved as mankind is by these technologies that are worked out there. Thank you.